I should have taken it as a sign when she stopped asking about my swing. For 15 years, Claire always pretended to care about my game, my club stories, even those boring Sunday tour recaps I mumbled through while folding laundry. But one day she just didn't. No, how was the course? No, did Doug finally beat your back nine? Nothing. Just a distracted, while she scrolled her phone and laughed at something that definitely wasn't funny. The funny part? I didn't suspect a damn thing. Until I came home early from the office because my stomach turned inside out from that gas station egg salad I stupidly trusted. I walked in quiet, holding my gut like I was about to deliver something unholy into the guest bathroom. And that's when I heard it. Not moaning, not gasping, nothing cliché, just silence. You know, the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, it's hiding something? That vacuum where two people hold their breath like scared kids behind the couch? I walked upstairs without making a sound. Our bedroom door was cracked open, wide enough for me to catch a glimpse of a golf glove hanging off the nightstand. Not mine. I stepped in, and there they were. Claire. And Randy. Yes, Randy, the guy who's been gripping his damn 9-iron wrong for 3 years while I patiently corrected his slice every other weekend. My so-called golf partner. Guy's got a 6 handicap and no spine. Claire screamed first. It's not what it looks like. I actually laughed. That was the first sound I made. It slipped out like a cough. She grabbed the sheet and scrambled like a sitcom character. Randy, shirtless, pale, pathetic, just stared at me like a deer, as if his tit-laced cap gave him invisibility. The only thing he said was, "Man, I didn't mean to, this isn't." Claire cut him off, shrieking. "It was a one-time mistake." "One time," I said, stepping forward. "Then why is his glove here, Claire?" She went pale. Because it wasn't just his glove. It was the glove I bought him for his birthday last month. The custom one with RS embroidered in red on the strap. You don't leave that behind unless you're comfortable. Familiar. I walked out. Quietly. Didn't yell, didn't cry. Just walked straight past the guest bathroom and out the front door. Sat in my truck for an hour staring at the steering wheel. The betrayal didn't even hit me yet. That came later. What burned that night was the humiliation. The image of Randy, sweaty, smug Randy, shirtless in my bed, in my house, under the framed picture of our wedding in Maui. Claire called 12 times that night. Left 8 voicemails. All variations of, "Please come back." It meant nothing. I was lonely. He was just here to talk. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First to my lawyer. Second to a guy named Harvey from my high school. Now a real estate developer with a sharp eye for opportunity. I didn't file anything yet. I wasn't ready, but I started preparing. Over the next few weeks, I played it calm, collected. I told Claire I needed time. She was relieved, thought I might forgive her. That was her second mistake. The first was letting me catch her. We even had dinner together a few nights. I watched her fake interest in my day. Watched her pretend she wasn't still texting someone under the table when she thought I was too deep into my steak. Then she slipped up. One night, I came home late from hitting balls alone at the range. She was on the phone in the kitchen. I stepped just close enough to hear it before she noticed. She whispered, "No, babe, he's still in the dark." Babe. She was still seeing him, still lying, and she thought I was clueless. I smiled, because that's when I knew I wouldn't just leave. I'd bury them both. And I already had the first nail for Randy's coffin. That's when I started watching the MLS listings. And guess whose house hit the market last week? Marked motivated seller, divorce relocation. Randy's. Guess who put in a cash offer the same day? Through a Shell LLC named after my grandfather's dog. Also me. But that part, that's for later. Because the day Claire found out who bought his house, she screamed loud enough for the neighbors to call animal control. And believe me, I hadn't even started yet. Claire thought she'd gotten away with it. That's what stung the most. The smug little grins when she thought I wasn't looking. The overly cheerful breakfasts. The suddenly frequent yoga classes she never returned sweaty from. She thought I was still limping around, emotionally concussed from walking in on her and Randy like some sad sap from a bad Lifetime special. What she didn't know was, I don't limp. I load weight. For 3 weeks, I let her perform her little theater. The doting wife, the regretful cheater, the woman who made a mistake and deserved grace because, get this, at least she told me the truth. She told me the truth? You mean when I opened the bedroom door and she had no choice but to start spinning? That's truth now? I told her I needed space, time to process. She nodded like a therapist, said she understood, suggested we go on a weekend retreat, one of those couples things with the hot tubs and healing circles. I told her I'd think about it. Meanwhile, I had my guy, Harvey, drafting offers with language clean enough to make a nun blush. We set up an LLC, Pinebrook Heritage Group, named after my grandfather's farm and absolutely, totally unrelated to me on paper. I funded it from an old trust no one in my current life even remembered existed. No shared accounts. No joint credit trail. She couldn't trace a penny of it. Randy's house, a bloated McMansion with granite counters and a leaky pool heater, had been on the market a whopping 6 days. The listing agent clearly had no idea the mess behind the scenes, just that the seller was willing to move quickly due to personal transitions. That was code 4. Randy's wife booted him after finding text from Claire. Funny how cheaters always think they're the smartest people in the room. I offered full asking. In cash. No contingencies. And I wanted a 14-day close. His realtor called me personally. Sir, the seller is surprised at how fast this is moving. He just wants to know why the interest. I chuckled. Let's just say I'm investing in something personal. He didn't press. The day we signed the purchase agreement, I took Claire out to dinner. Her idea, of course. She wore a red dress she hadn't touched in years. I used to love that dress. Now it felt like a uniform for someone I didn't know. Midway through the meal, she said something that stuck with me. I just want to feel safe again. Like I used to when we'd curl up on the couch and you'd fall asleep during that dumb golf documentary. I raised my glass. To safety. She smiled. Thought we were healing. In her mind, she'd gotten the best of both worlds. Me, the stable husband who forgives, and Randy, the thrill on the side. Except I wasn't healing. I was harvesting. 2 nights later, while she was running errands, I drove over to Randy's soon-to-be former house. I sat outside in my truck, headlights off, watching as he stumbled out the front door with a duffel bag and a phone glued to his ear. He was yelling. Something about money that hadn't cleared. Something about needing a place to crash. Then, like a gift from the gods of poetic justice, I saw her. Claire. Walking up the driveway. Not hiding. Not sneaking. She kissed him right there, under the motion-activated porch light. My wife. The woman who had sobbed in my arms 2 nights earlier about second chances. Tongue deep in Randy's mouth while his garage door rolled open like a low-budget porno. I took a photo. Just one. Not for court. Not for drama. For me. So I'd never, not for 1 second, forget who she really was. That night, I went home and placed a single item in our bedroom drawer. A broken tea I'd found beside Randy's nightstand the day I caught them. A tiny, splintered piece of plastic. Insignificant to anyone else. But to me, it was a shard of the moment my marriage died. And it was going to become very significant soon. Because the day escrow closed, I had Harvey send a courier to Claire at work. Inside the envelope was a note. Just 6 words. Check who owns Randy's house. She didn't call. She didn't text. She ran through the front door that evening, red-faced, trembling, clutching the printout like it had personally slapped her. You bought it, she gasped. I leaned back in my chair. Calm. Cold. You mean Pinebrook Heritage Group? Yeah. Nice backyard, right? She dropped the paper. Her lip quivered. Why would you do that? Now I smiled. Real slow. Because I own the one thing you never thought I'd want. And then, just to twist the knife, I added. And he'll be out by Friday. He just doesn't know it yet. To be continued. She didn't speak for a full minute. Not a sound. Not even her usual fake scoff or sarcastic chuckle when I said something too clever for her to spin. Just silence, and not the tense, dramatic kind. This was pure, stunned, caught off guard humiliation. She kept blinking at the document like she could somehow rewrite it with enough eye contact. Like my signature might vanish if she stared hard enough. I watched her. No yelling. No apologies. No tears. Just a woman finally realizing she was no longer playing chess with the houseplant she thought I was. You don't have the right, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I have the deed, I replied, sipping my coffee. That's all the right I need. She stood there in that pathetic crimson blouse she always wore when she wanted attention, wrinkled, too tight across the chest, perfume clinging like desperation. I looked at her, and saw everything I used to ignore. All the signs, all the red flags I filed under "she's just stressed," or "we're just in a slump." God, I was blind. "Are you going to tell him?" she finally asked. I raised an eyebrow. "What? That I own his house?" "Oh, don't worry. He'll find out soon enough." That shook her. She knew Randy couldn't handle surprises. The man flinched when the toaster popped. And now his landlord was the husband he betrayed with a half-chub and a 5-iron. She left without saying another word, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames. But I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at that photo of us in Sedona, sunset behind her, big fake smile, eyes already bored. I should have burned it. Instead, I took it off the wall, flipped it over, and wrote one word on the back in permanent marker. Pawn. Because that's what she was now. That night, I drove over to the property. My property. Randy hadn't moved out yet. He still had 3 days before closing. But I wanted to walk it. Not for nostalgia. For planning. The house was as tacky as I remembered. Glass-top furniture, TV mounted too high, framed inspirational quotes on the walls like "Live, Laugh, Love" could excuse his character flaws. I found a half-empty bottle of his fancy whiskey on the counter. Cheap stuff pretending to be smooth. I didn't touch it. What I did touch was the drawer in his hallway cabinet. The one he always kept locked when I came over. It wasn't locked anymore. Inside, photos. Printed ones. Claire. In lingerie. On my bed. In my car. One shot of her wearing my damn golf hat. Nothing else. I should have snapped. Thrown something. Instead, I smiled. Because Randy was a moron. He had no idea what was coming. I snapped a few pictures of the prints. Didn't take them. No need. I already had what I needed. But the real treasure came at the bottom of the drawer. A receipt. From a jewelry store. Not Claire's birthday. Not their 1-month flingiversary. Or whatever garbage they celebrated in secret. It was dated 3 days ago. I scanned the receipt again. One item. 14K white gold solitaire. Custom initial engraving. C+R. So, he was planning to propose. To my wife. In a house I now owned. I sat down in his recliner. My recliner. Now. And laughed. Laughed so hard I nearly cried. I already had revenge lined up, but this opened a whole new level of opportunity. Because now, it wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the audacity. You think you can screw me over, Claire? In my home, with my so-called friend, then run back to me for comfort while he buys you a ring? All right, let's see how you both handle a little stage lighting. So I called Harvey. Tighten the paperwork, I told him. Make sure I can access the property any time before he vacates. I want that in writing. You're planning something, he said, not even asking. Oh yeah. Do I want to know? Nope. Then I made one more call. Not to a lawyer. Not to Claire. Not to Randy. To the HOA. There's a clause in their bylaws. About signs. Yard signs. Temporary ones. Up to 48 hours. I paid the expedited fee. That Sunday, the sign went up. Right on Randy's pristine front lawn. 3 feet tall. Vinyl. Bold letters. For sale by owner. Cheap bed. Never used for sleeping. And underneath, in smaller print. Inquiries? Ask Claire. It took them exactly 4 hours to show up. And Claire? She screamed so loud. Even the HOA rep flinched. But me? I just smiled from the truck. Window down. Coffee in hand. Because this wasn't revenge yet. This was foreplay. She came at me like a storm in heels. Red-faced, hair wild, tears streaking mascara into something fit for a horror film. Claire pounded on my driver's side window like she was trying to break through steel, shrieking at a pitch normally reserved for bats and banshees. Take it down, you psychopath. I didn't flinch. Just took a slow sip of my coffee, extra bold, just how she used to hate it, and looked her dead in the eye. You want it down? I asked, rolling the window halfway. By the house back. Her mouth dropped open like she hadn't actually expected me to say something that cold. Maybe she thought I'd beg for her again, collapse into some emotional plea for love. She still hadn't caught on. I wasn't the same man she screwed over. She pounded the hood of the truck. You're ruining everything. Claire, I said, I didn't ruin anything. You did. With your legs. That stopped her. She backed up, blinking. For a second, I saw her crack. Not guilt. Claire never truly felt guilt, but fear. The kind that creeps in when a control freak loses the narrative. And I had yanked that narrative out of her hands, lit it on fire, and mailed the ashes to her mother. The HOA lady stood off to the side, awkwardly fiddling with her clipboard. "Sir, the signage is a little inflammatory," she mumbled. I grinned. "But is it against the bylaws?" She hesitated, then reluctantly shook her head. "Nope. 48 hours. That's the rule, right?" Claire screamed again, an unhinged, primal sound, and stormed back toward the house. My house. And Randy? Oh, Randy was watching all of it from the upstairs window, mouth half open, frozen like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar and his pants down. This wasn't the climax. This was pressure. Because I wanted Randy to feel it. To know his time in that house and in my life was not only over, it was being replaced. Systematically. Intentionally. With me. See, what Claire and Randy never understood was that I'm a builder by trade. I don't blow things up for fun. I dismantle. Quietly. Brick by brick. With a level and a crowbar. And I rebuild on top of the wreckage while you're still standing in it wondering where your floor went. That night, I made my next move. I had Harvey draft an eviction notice under the LLC. Not immediate, too messy. No, this was the kind that hits hard because it feels fair. 30 days. Legal. Signed, notarized, delivered by courier. Randy got it 2 days later. Claire called me 6 minutes after that. "You're evicting him," she gasped. "He just proposed to me last night." I nearly dropped my phone from laughing. "Oh, congrats. You're engaged to a soon-to-be homeless man. Does Hallmark make a card for that?" "You don't understand it." "No, Claire. You don't understand. You're standing on property I own, in a house I paid for, screwing a man who couldn't even afford the ring without pawning his ski equipment." She tried to pivot. "This isn't healthy. You need help." Ah, there it was. The therapist voice. The one she used when she wanted to spin something awful into something my fault. "You're paranoid," she added. "It's all your revenge fantasies talking." "Funny," I said. "Every revenge fantasy I've had lately has come with a title deed and legal backing." She went silent. Then the real kicker. "I'll leave him," she whispered. I stared at the phone. "Say that again?" "I'll cut it off with Randy. We can fix this. I made a mistake, but I still love you." It was almost funny how easily it rolled off her tongue. Like she'd said it before. Like maybe she had a script. I pictured her practicing that line in the mirror, coaching her eyes to water just enough. Claire had always been good at theater. I let her hang in that silence. Let her imagine, for just a second, that maybe I'd bite. Then I replied, real slow. "Claire, you already did leave him." A pause. "What? You just don't know it yet." Then I hung up. See, while Claire had been performing her redemption arc, I'd been talking to someone else. Her boss. Turns out Claire hadn't told him about her extended lunches with Randy, or the client account she'd passed off to him without disclosure, which, funny enough, violated about 6 different internal policies. I didn't even have to report it. I just left a few anonymous breadcrumbs. Screenshots. Calendar conflicts. One particularly damning photo of her with Randy in the parking lot behind the office, timestamped. You'd be amazed what interns will do for a $100 Amazon gift card. She was called into HR 2 days later. And Randy? Well, he wasn't just getting evicted from the house. Because what Claire didn't know yet was that Randy's ex-wife, the one he cheated on with my wife, she had reached out to me, and she wanted to talk. In person. With documents. Apparently, Randy didn't just betray me. He betrayed her financially. Which means soon, he won't just lose his house. He'll lose a hell of a lot more. But Claire? She's the one who's going to scream the loudest. And I'm going to be there when she does. The meeting with Randy's ex-wife was held at a quiet little wine bar just outside of town. The kind of place with overpriced Merlot and a waitstaff too polite to ask questions, even when they see 2 people trading manila folders like spies in a Cold War thriller. Her name was Lauren. Dark blazer, no makeup, clipped voice. She wasn't here for pleasantries. "I almost didn't come," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Then I remembered he bought Claire that bracelet with our joint credit card. I nodded. "The one with the little gold charms?" "Yeah, the one I bought his mother last Christmas." He regifted it. She sipped her drink. I waited. Then she dropped the folder on the table and gave me a look that said, "You'll want to sit down for this," even though I already was. "Bank transfers," she said. "Some under his name, most funneled through a PayPal under his golf blog, which, by the way, doesn't exist." Guess what all those equipment reviews were? I flipped through the printouts. Thousands in transfers, hotel stays, Amazon charges that looked suspiciously like lingerie, home massage kits, and one entry just titled Tasteful Photography. I stared at that one for a while. Please tell me that doesn't mean what I think it means. Oh, it does, Lauren said. There's a photographer in town. Specializes in boudoir shoots. Guess who booked a couple session in May? Claire and Randy. Just 5 weeks after I walked in on them. He wasn't just screwing her. He was posing with her. Lauren pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. You want to see the booking email? No, I said. I believe you. But I didn't. Not because I doubted her. I just didn't want to see Claire draped in lace while Randy grinned like the off-brand sex god he thought he was. Lauren leaned back. Here's the part you'll care about. A good chunk of those charges were made before you caught them. Meaning? Meaning he was taking your wife on getaways while you were buying his beers on the 9th hole. That sat heavy. Not rage. Not sadness. Just the slow, dull thud of realization that I had been financing my own humiliation. You said he used your joint card? Lauren nodded. And lied to my face about it. Said he was buying equipment. I smiled. He was. Just not the kind you mount on a golf cart. We clinked glasses, dry sarcasm bonding two broken spouses over a shared betrayal, and she slid one more document across the table. This one's the nail, she said. He lied to the court in our separation. Hid assets. Claimed he was unemployed and couch surfing when in reality he was living in the house I just bought. Bingo. I leaned back. Wheels already turning. So if we can prove fraud, he's screwed. And if we go public, he'll lose everything. We didn't have to say it out loud, but we both understood. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about exposure. He thought he was playing chess with pawns. Turns out, he was up against two rooks, silent, patient, cornering him step by step. By the time I got home, Claire was waiting on the porch. Hair in a bun, sweater too neat, face rehearsed. She'd been crying artfully, the way she did when she wanted to trigger the protector in me. I didn't stop walking. Wait, just wait, she begged, blocking the door. I need to explain. Explain what? I said. How you posed half-naked with a man who borrowed money from both his ex-wife and mine? Her jaw tightened. I stepped closer. You know what hurts the most, Claire? It's not the cheating. That's basic. Boring, even. It's how lazy you were about it. You couldn't even cheat with someone smart. You picked a man who writes off Gatorade as a business expense. I didn't know. Don't finish that sentence, I cut in. Because if you didn't know, you're stupid. And if you did know, you're worse. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a weak puff of air. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. I was going to give you this. Before everything. She handed it to me. I unwrapped it slowly. A watch. Not just any watch. My father's watch. The one I thought I lost 2 years ago. The one she said she accidentally donated. You stole it. No, she said too fast. I found it in the attic. I wanted to fix it for your birthday. Why would you lie about losing it? She hesitated. Then, because you were distant. Cold. You cared more about golf than me. I wanted to get your attention. I stared at her. So your plan was to lie, cheat, and give back a stolen heirloom like it was a grand gesture? She started crying again. I was lonely. And I was faithful. That shut her up. I held the watch for a moment. Heavy. Familiar. Then dropped it back into the tissue and handed it to her. Pawn it. You'll need it soon. Then I walked past her, into the house. Because the next move wasn't for her. It was for Randy. And it involved one very special photo. Taken through his front window. From inside his own house. Of him, with Claire. One frame, time-stamped, smiling at the camera like fools. And I knew exactly who to send it to. Not the tabloids. Not the court. His employer. Because it turns out Randy's golf blog wasn't his real job. He worked at a private prep school. And the board of trustees? Very, very strict about conduct. This wasn't over. But it was about to get very public. When the email went out, I timed it to hit inboxes at 8:17 a.m., just as the board meeting was starting. No subject line. No greeting. Just the photo, high-res and time-stamped, with a single sentence. Thought you'd want to see how your head of student development spends his weekends. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. Let them guess. Let Randy sweat while 12 aging prep school trustees stared at his smug, shirtless smirk next to a woman wearing a wedding ring that didn't match his. I waited. Not long. By 9:03 a.m., the school's HR line was flooded. Randy was called in before his first cup of coffee hit the desk. 3 hours later, his access badge was deactivated. No police, no fireworks. Just quiet, surgical dismantling. Reputation, terminated. By noon, the email leaked to the faculty. By 1 p.m., it had been printed and passed around the senior student dorms. By 3 p.m., Randy called Claire. And Claire, God bless her delusion, still thought she could fix it. She came to my house again that evening. No warning. No call. Just knocked once and walked in like she still belonged there. I need to know if you did it, she said. No pleasantries. Just that fake calm tone, the one she used when she knew the walls were collapsing. I didn't deny it. Just shrugged. I told you. You already left him. You just didn't know it yet. Her eyes narrowed. He lost his job. So? He's devastated. I smiled. So was I. For about a minute. Then I realized devastated is just another word for finally paying the bill. She sat down without asking. My chair, of course. The one I used to nap, and after mowing the lawn she never once offered to water. You've made your point, she said softly. No, I said. I've made my move. Her eyes flared. What does that mean? I leaned forward. It means I'm not done. Not by a mile. You hurt me, Claire. Not just by screwing him, but by trying to make me feel crazy while you did it. The gaslighting. The fake tears. The yoga classes that didn't leave a sweat stain. She looked away. Do you know how humiliating it is? I continued. To buy beers for a man who's sweating your wife in your bed? To teach him how to read a green while he's memorizing your moans? She flinched. Yeah, that's what you broke, Claire. Not the vows. Not the marriage. Me. You broke the man who trusted you with everything. She didn't speak. Couldn't. So I gave her something to chew on. I pulled out the box I'd kept hidden under the guest bed, the one she thought I never used. Inside, receipts, printouts, photos, a copy of Randy's fake blog invoices, the jewelry store order, and a document with a red stamp, pending civil action, fraud and misrepresentation. Her eyes widened. You're suing him? No, I said. Lauren is. Claire's jaw clenched. You gave her the files? I gave her truth. What she does with it is up to her. She stood, rattled now. Why are you doing this? What's the end game? And that's when I dropped it. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This wasn't even about Claire and Randy. This was about resetting the scale. You remember Gary? I asked. She blinked. Your old mentor? Yeah. The guy who told me to always have a backup plan. Always know the escape hatch in every building. Claire shifted, wary now. Well, guess what? I said. The house you're living in? Not just mine anymore. What are you talking about? It's sold. Closed this morning. Her eyes flew open. You're kidding. I held up the deed transfer form. New owner moves in next month. You'll have 30 days to vacate. I suggest you start packing. Her hands trembled. You can't do that. You said you were just giving me time. I did, I said. I gave you time to lie. Time to pose and lace for Randy while you begged me to forgive you. Time to sit at our dinner table and tell me you were healing. I leaned in close, voice low. I don't owe you a home anymore, Claire. I owe you honesty. And the truth is, I never want to hear you breathe in my walls again. Then I walked upstairs and left her frozen in the foyer. She was still standing there when the front door opened again. Lauren. Yep. I invited her over. Claire spun around. What the hell is this? Lauren walked in calm, collected, holding a small envelope. Just thought I'd return this, she said, dropping it at Claire's feet. Inside, the photo of Randy and Claire, printed on heavy cardstock, with one handwritten note at the bottom. You deserve each other. Claire turned to me. You planned this. No, I said. I prepared it. She looked like she was about to lunge, but she didn't. She walked out instead. No yelling. No crying. Just one quiet slam of the door. Lauren smirked. Was that cathartic? I poured her a drink. No. I looked toward the window, where the sun was setting behind Randy's now empty porch. It was necessary, because the final act hadn't begun. And Randy? He was about to get a visitor of his own. Someone wearing a badge. It was raining the day the investigator showed up at Randy's motel. Not poetic drizzle or a romantic thunderstorm. Just ugly, sideways, get under the awning rain that turned parking lots into swamps. Fitting, really. Because by then, Randy was living exactly where he belonged. A two-star motor in that smelled like wet socks and regret. 30 miles from the life he torched for a few late-night moans and his sole connection with another man's wife. I didn't send the investigator. That honor belonged to Lauren. Apparently, the court had fast-tracked her civil case once she presented the full paper trail: financial fraud, concealed assets, marital misconduct. But the cherry on top? Randy had listed his current residence as pending relocation, while still living, illegally, in a property he no longer owned. Which meant the court got curious. Which meant the court sent someone to ask questions. Which meant, at 9:47 a.m., Randy opened his door wearing boxers and a towel around his neck, face puffy and confused, to a man in a trench coat who introduced himself with a badge and a notepad. Witnesses say Randy tried to laugh it off. Said something like, "This is all just a big misunderstanding." He even offered the guy a Diet Coke. The agent said no. Instead, he asked about the PayPal accounts, the jewelry purchases, the invoice padding. Then he asked about something Randy wasn't expecting: a wire transfer, $12,500 sent to a Florida shell company in Claire's name. That stopped the conversation, because Claire didn't have a business in Florida. But I knew what that was. It was money she'd siphoned from our joint account during our healing phase, disguised as a consulting fee. She used it to fund a reset weekend for her and Randy. Spa, beach resort, private suite. I only caught it later through a flagged withdrawal on my banking app, by then already refunded and relabeled as a personal emergency. But the court? They had questions. When I got the call from Lauren, she was giddy. "They're going to audit everything," she said. "If Randy so much as sneezed near a tax form, they'll find it." "Good," I said. But I wasn't smiling. Not yet. Because my play was still unfolding. See, while the legal wolves closed in on Randy, I made one last move. Not on him. On Claire. Not out of cruelty. Out of calculated mercy. She got served the same week. A formal demand for financial reconciliation, complete with receipts of her transfers, including that wire. The packet arrived at her office. Her new office. The one she barely held on to after her HR incident. I didn't include the photos this time. Didn't need to. The damage was already in motion. But I did include a note. One line, handwritten, no signature. "Run if you want, but you'll always be chasing your own shadow." A day later, she quit her job. Told her coworkers she was taking time to focus on her mental health. Moved into a rental with peeling paint and bad plumbing. Started seeing a therapist. But not for healing. For legal advice. Because Randy had gone silent. No calls. No texts. No explanations. And Claire? She was finally realizing what it felt like to be left holding a bag full of burned bridges and bounced checks. I watched it all from a distance. No gloating. No public shaming. Just patient observation. One afternoon, I parked across from Randy's old house, my former house, and watched as movers hauled out the last of his belongings. A broken desk. A golf bag. A single box marked memories. The irony was thick. He'd spent years building an illusion. A life funded by others, coated in charm, propped up by lies. And now it fit in the back of a rental van. A knock at my window pulled me from the moment. Lauren. She slid into the passenger seat without asking, holding a large manila envelope. "Want to see the deposition summary?" she asked. I shook my head. "Already know how it ends." She smiled. "He's going to settle. Fast. Before the IRS or his ex-employer presses charges. And Claire. Throwing him under the bus so fast I'm surprised the wheels haven't melted." We sat in silence for a moment. "You feel better?" she asked finally. "No." I looked out at the house one more time. "But I feel cleaner." She left shortly after. I stayed a while longer. Let the rain mist the windshield. Let the quiet settle. Because the real revenge wasn't legal or financial. It wasn't the sign in Randy's yard, or the photo email, or the lawsuit Claire didn't see coming. The real revenge was this. I didn't need them anymore. And they needed each other. Desperately. Fractured. Broke. Codependent, and clinging to the wreckage like survivors of a shipwreck they caused. Let them drown together. Because the last part of my plan was already waiting for them. And it came in the form of an unexpected gift. Delivered to Claire's doorstep. Wrapped in black tissue. With a tiny broken T taped to the bow. Claire opened the package at 6:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I know that because I had it couriered with signature confirmation. It sat on her porch for 27 minutes, long enough for the humidity to curl the corners of the black tissue wrap, before she stepped outside, barefoot, still in the faded sorority hoodie she wore when she wanted to look relatable. She looked tired, worn, like the walls had finally closed in, which they had. Inside the box, the broken tea I'd found next to Randy's nightstand, wrapped in velvet. Below it, a single sheet of thick paper, folded once. No threats, no legal jargon, just a printout of her bank activity from the year she started seeing Randy. A list of every errand that had an unusually high charge, every business lunch that coincided with suspicious withdrawals, and the kicker, the Florida wire transfer, highlighted in red. At the bottom, I'd written, "You always said you hated golf. Now you'll never forget the tea time." No signature. No need. Claire dropped the paper as if it burned her. And maybe it did, because the symbols, the tea, the printout, the silence, were heavier than any insult I could have thrown. There was no shouting match, no dramatic confrontation, just the weight of her own choices finally pressing down. I didn't see her cry, but I know she did, because 30 minutes later, she called. Blocked number. I answered, just to hear the silence on the other end. Finally, her voice came through, hoarse. "Why are you doing this?" I didn't speak. "Do you want me to apologize? To crawl? I made a mistake, okay? I screwed up. You're making it worse. You think this is worse?" I said flatly. She started to respond, but I cut her off. "Claire, you haven't seen worse. Yet. But you will." Then I hung up, because that was never the conversation she thought it would be. She expected a climax, a showdown, maybe even redemption. But I wasn't interested in redemption. I was interested in legacy. And I had one more play left. Randy, meanwhile, was swirling the drain faster than I expected. His lawyer dropped him. Lauren's civil suit was now public record, picked up by a local news site that gleefully ran the headline. Prep school admin accused of financial misconduct, affair with colleague's wife. It wasn't viral, but it didn't need to be. It landed exactly where I wanted it. At the desk of his mother. The same woman who'd once called Claire a fresh start and told me to work on my jealousy issues when I first expressed suspicion 2 years ago. She sent me an email, apologizing, said she was horrified, said she was praying for peace. I didn't respond. Let her sit with that, too. But the final domino? That came from a place neither of them expected, the country club. I'd been quiet with them. No drama. I didn't cancel my membership, didn't start rumors. I just waited. Then, one Friday afternoon, I casually shared a folder with the club president. Inside, proof that Randy had used club resources, including a private suite and a comp driver, for one of his retreats with Claire. All against policy. All paid for by a vendor who later declined to renew their sponsorship. That little hiccup cost the club $30,000. They weren't amused. By Monday morning, Randy's membership was revoked. Claire's name was scrubbed from the member directory, and a quiet little memo went out reminding all members of the club's personal conduct standards. And me? They bumped my tea time privileges up for the rest of the year. Poetic. But none of it, hit quite like what happened next. Because Claire wasn't done trying. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew that handwriting like I knew my own. Inside, 5 pages of pure Claire. Shame. Excuses. Childhood trauma. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lost. You were distant. A tour of deflection so masterful, I almost wanted to clap. At the end, she asked one thing. "Can we meet one last time?" And that's when I knew she still didn't get it. She thought this was about closure. She thought she could tie a bow on the wreckage and walk away with a chapter called Forgiven. She didn't understand. The only bow in this story was already taped to a box. And I had no intention of opening another one. But I would meet her, just not in the way she expected. Because the final blow? That would be public. On her turf. With one name. One man. And one seat at a table she never thought I'd fill. The reservation was for 7 p.m. at the Italian place Claire always insisted was too fancy for real people. Funny how she changed her tune after the affair. Suddenly, it became her go-to for reclaiming joy. if her Instagram captions were anything to go by. I booked the table under her maiden name. I wanted to make sure she recognized the setup before she saw me. She arrived at 7:03. Predictable. She liked being slightly late, so people would look up when she entered. I saw her through the window. Tight black dress, too much makeup, nerves tucked under forced confidence. She scanned the dining room, expecting something soft, maybe sentimental. A drink, a hug, an ex-husband offering a sliver of grace. Instead, she saw me. And next to me, her former marriage counselor, Tom Delaney. She stopped dead, mouth open. Then, her face dropped as she registered the other chair. Empty. For now. She approached slowly, confused. What is this? I stood, greeted her with a handshake. Formal. I made sure not to use her name. Please. Sit. She did. Mechanically. Delaney nodded at her. Claire. She blinked. Why are you here? I answered. Thought it was time we discussed the damage. With a professional. She narrowed her eyes. We already did therapy. No, I said. We did performance art. You cried. I paid. Nothing changed. Delaney, to his credit, stayed quiet. Just observed. The man had sat through enough train wrecks to know when to let the debris fly on its own. Claire tried to recover. So what? You ambush me in a restaurant with, what is this? An intervention? I leaned in. No, Claire. This is a memorial. She frowned. For what? I didn't answer. Because at that moment, the final guest arrived. A man in his early 20s. Athletic build. Quiet demeanor. He looked just enough like me around the eyes to make Claire visibly blanch. His name was Dylan. He was Randy's son, from the first marriage. And up until 3 months ago, he hadn't spoken to his father in nearly a decade. Until someone, reached out with court records, photos, and financial evidence. Turns out, Dylan had a college fund, one that mysteriously vanished the year Randy started buying Claire gifts and weekend getaways. That fund had been split in the divorce, meant to be protected. It wasn't. Claire looked at him, then at me. What the hell is this? Dylan sat. Calm. No drama. Just steady eyes on Claire. I wanted to see the woman my dad threw his life away for, he said. Her mouth opened. No words came. I wanted to understand how someone could burn 2 families and call it love. Claire's hands trembled. Dylan turned to me. Thank you for showing me. For telling the truth. I nodded. You deserve it. Claire stood abruptly. Her chair screeched. This is cruel. No, I said. Cruel was what you did while I was buying groceries and you were booking hotel rooms. This is just full circle. Delaney spoke for the first time. Claire, sometimes truth isn't vengeance. It's just gravity. It pulls everything to the surface, eventually. She looked around like she might scream, like she might flip the table. Then her eyes landed on Dylan again, and something broke. Her face crumpled. She sat back down, quiet, small, like a child who finally realized the grown-ups were serious. I finished my wine. This dinner, I said, wasn't about forgiveness or closure. It's a funeral for the life you chose to destroy. She whispered, is this the part where you say you'll never speak to me again? I shook my head. No, this is the part where I say, you won't get the chance. I slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a signed statement relinquishing her claim to the last remaining marital asset, an undeveloped plot of land my grandfather left me in Vermont. Claire never cared about it. But after the divorce, she wanted half. Just to spite me. Now, she was handing it back. Because inside the envelope wasn't just a legal document. There was a photo of Claire, naked, asleep, curled next to Randy in a hotel room after she said she ended the affair. Time-stamped. Stamped. Irrefutable. Her hand shook as she stared at it. I never showed this to the court, I said. Didn't need to. But now you know, I could have. Anytime. She signed. Without a word. Dylan stood. I'm done here. He left. Delaney followed. And Claire? She stayed seated. Alone. Photo in one hand, pen in the other. I walked past her without looking back. Because the real punishment wasn't legal. It wasn't even public. It was permanent. She could lie to herself for years. But she'd never forget who sat across from her that night. Or who didn't. 3 months later, I played 18 holes with a new partner. His name was Mark, mid-50s, decent swing, divorcee from upstate. Quiet guy. Didn't ask many questions, which I appreciated. We walked the back 9 in near silence until he finally glanced over on hole 16 and said, "You always play this focused?" I smirked. Used to play distracted. Didn't end well. He didn't push further. Just nodded, and we teed off. Randy would have made a joke. Claire would have faked a laugh. That life? Gone. Buried under bad choices and quiet vengeance. And no matter how many times I replayed it, the most satisfying part wasn't the public fallout, or the lawsuits, or the faces they made when the truth came down like a judge's gavel. It was the silence. That eerie, perfect silence after everything collapses, and there's no one left to blame but the face in the mirror. Claire tried to call once more. Blocked number. I let it ring. The voicemail that came in hours later was 5 minutes of nothing but breathing and one sentence, whispered at the end. I miss who we were. Who we were. Not who she was. Not who I was. The version of us before she turned intimacy into espionage. Before she weaponized guilt and let another man leave footprints in our marriage bed. I deleted the voicemail. Not out of rage. Out of peace. That weekend, a letter arrived at my door. Certified mail. From Randy's lawyer. The summary was short. He'd settled with Lauren. Liquidated what was left of his savings. Agreed to a repayment plan for the Siphon College Fund. He was banned from his former employer's premises. Blacklisted in 3 private school systems. Pending IRS audit. Claire didn't go down with him, but she didn't walk away clean, either. Her credit was in ruins. Her reputation? In tatters. The apartment she rented after I sold the house? Vacated. Forwarded address. Unknown. A friend of a friend said she moved in with a cousin in Nevada. Working part-time at a bookstore. Going by her maiden name again. Back to square one. Full circle. Poetic. As for me, I didn't reinvent myself. Didn't move to Bali or start journaling. I kept living. But quieter. Sharper. More deliberate. The kind of man who doesn't leave his front door unlocked anymore, not out of fear, but because he knows exactly what people are capable of when they think you're too nice to notice. One morning, I visited the Vermont land. Just me in the silence. The trees were taller than I remembered. There was a breeze rolling down from the ridge. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the clearing that might one day hold a cabin. Or maybe nothing at all. Maybe it'll just stay empty. A clean slate. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the broken tea. Yes, I still had it. The same one I found by the nightstand, the first breadcrumb on the trail to truth. I dug a small hole with my boot and buried it at the edge of the property. No marker. No fanfare. Just finality. Because forgiveness doesn't always wear a white robe. Sometimes, it shows up in work boots with a shovel and no audience. I didn't bury it to forget. I buried it because I remembered enough. And now? Now it was time to start swinging again. Clean course. New partner. No ghosts. Just the sound of that perfect contact. And silence.